Tomorrow's Revolution. 1. When I was in my teens, I admired my father above all men. From him I learnt to admire Balzac, and to set certain passages in Shakespeare above all else in literature. But when I was 23 or 24, I read Ruskin's Unto This Last, of which I do not remember a word, and we began to quarrel, for he was John Stuart Mill's disciple. Once he threw me against a picture with such violence that I broke the glass with the back of my head. But it was not only with my father that I quarrelled, nor were economics the only theme. There was no dominant opinion I could accept. Then finding out that I, having no clear case, my opponent's case had been clarifying itself for centuries, had become both boor and bore, I invented a patter, allowing myself an easy man's insincerity, and for honesty's sake, a little malice. And now it seems that I can talk nothing else. But I think I have succeeded, and that none of my friends know that I am a fanatic. My reader may say that it was all natural, that every generation is against its predecessor, but that conflict is superficial, an exaltation of the individual life that had little importance before modern journalism. That other war, where opposites die each other's life, live each other's death, is a slow-moving thing. We, who are the opposites of our times, should for the most part work at our art, and for good manners' sake be silent. What matter if our art or science lack hearty acquiescence, seem narrow and traditional? Horne built the smallest church in London, went to Italy and became the foremost authority upon Botticelli. Ricketts made pictures that suggest Delacroix by their colour and remind us by their theatrical composition that Talma once invoked the thunderbolt. Synge fled to the Aran Islands to escape the squalor of the poor and the nullity of the rich, and found among forgotten people a mirror for his bitterness. I gave certain years to writing plays in Shakespearean blank verse about Irish kings for whom nobody cared a farthing. After all, Asiatic conquerors before battle invoked their ancestors, and a few years ago a Japanese admiral thanked his for guiding the torpedoes. 2. But now I must, if I can, put away my patter, speak to the young men before the ox treads on my tongue. Here is my text. I take it from the Anatomy of Melancholy. So many different ways are we pledged and punished for our fathers' defaults, insomuch that, as Fernelius truly saith, it is the greatest part of our felicity to be well born, and it were happy for humankind, if only such parents as are sound of body and mind should be suffered to marry. An husbandman will sow none but the best and choicest seed upon his land. He will not rear a bull or an horse, except he be right shapen in all parts, or permit him to cover a mare, except he be well assured of his breed. We make a choice of the best rams for our sheep, rear the neatest kine, and keep the best dogs. Quanto id diligentius in procreandis liberis observandum. And how careful then should we be in begetting our children? In former times, some countries have been so chary in this behalf, so stern, that if a child were crooked or deformed in mind or body, they made him away. So did the Indians of old by the relation of Curtius, and many other well-governed commonwealths, according to the discipline of those times. Heretofore in Scotland, saith Hecht Boethius, if any were visited with the falling sickness, madness, gout, leprosy, or any such dangerous diseases, which was likely to be propagated from the father to the son, he was instantly gelded. A woman kept from all company of men, and if by chance, having some such disease, she were found to be with child, she and her brood were buried alive. And this was done for the common good, lest the whole nation should be injured or corrupted. A severe doom, you will say, and not to be used among Christians, yet more to be looked into than it is. For now, by our too much facility in this kind, in giving away for all to marry that will, too much liberty and indulgence in tolerating all sorts, there is a vast confusion of hereditary diseases, no family secure, no man almost free from some grievous infirmity or other. When no choice is had, but still the eldest must marry, as so many stallions of the race. Or if rich, be they fools or dizzards, lame or maimed, enable, intemperate, dissolute, exhaust through riot. As he said, jure hereditario sapere jubentur. They must be wise and able by inheritance. It comes to pass that our generation is corrupt. We have many weak persons, both in body and mind. Many feral diseases raging amongst us, crazed families, parentis peremptories. Our fathers bad, and we are like to be worse. 3. Though well-known specialists are convinced that the principal European nations are degenerating in body and in mind, their evidence remains almost unknown, because a politician and newspaper that gave it adequate exposition would lose, the one his constituency, the other its circulation. That upon which success in life in the main depends may be called coordination, or a capacity for sustained purpose. And this capacity, this innate intelligence or mother wit, can be measured, in children especially, with great accuracy. The curious and elaborate tests are unlike school examinations because they eliminate, or almost eliminate, the child's acquired knowledge. This mother wit is not everything, and may have been the same in Bluebeard and St. Augustine. Gray's Milton remained, for lack of acquired knowledge, mute, inglorious. But it outweighs everything else by, let us say, 6-1, and is hereditary like the speed of a dog or a horse. Take a pair of twins and educate one in wealth, the other in poverty. Test from time to time. Their mother wit will be the same. Pick a group of slum children, examine for mother wit, move half the children to some other neighborhood where they have better food, light, and air, and after several months or years re-examine. Except for the increase which comes with age, it increases until we are 17 and declines after 35, there will be little or no difference. Furthermore, if you arrange an ascending scale from the unemployed to skilled labor, from skilled labor to shopkeepers and clerks, from shopkeepers and clerks to professional men, there is not only an increase of mother wit, but of the size of the body and its freedom from constitutional defects. Intelligence and bodily vigor are not in themselves connected, but those who in their mating have sought intelligence have sought vigor also. As intelligence and freedom from bodily defect increase, wealth increases in exact measure until enough for the necessities of life is reached, fixed by Cattell at £140 a year. And after that, with many exceptions, for men have other goals. There are exceptions throughout. Clever men are born among dunces, dunces among clever men, and here and there a dunce earns much money, but in every country the statistics work out the same average. But this ascending scale has another character which may or must turn all politics upside down. The families grow smaller as we ascend. Among the unemployed, they average between 4 and 5. Among the professional classes, between 2 and 3. Among the unemployed, there are still families of 12 and 13 children. But when we reach skilled labor, families of 6 have come to an end, and this is true of all Western Europe, Catholic and Protestant alike. Since about 1900, the better stocks have not been replacing their numbers, while the stupider and less healthy have been more than replacing theirs. Unless there is a change in the public mind, every rank above the lowest must degenerate, and as inferior men push up into its gaps, degenerate more and more quickly. The results are already visible in the degeneration of literature, newspapers, amusements. There was once a stock company playing Shakespeare in every considerable town. And, I am convinced, in benefactions like that of Lord Nuffield, a self-made man, to Oxford, which must gradually substitute applied science for ancient wisdom. Not that it will matter much what they teach. Mr. Bernard Shaw, contemplating the impressive English school system, has remarked that his old nurse was right when she said that you couldn't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Then, too, think of the growing cohesiveness, the growing frenzy, everybody thinking like everybody else, preoccupation of all sorts with the youthful chimpanzee. Any notable 18th century orator contrasts with Lloyd George as an orator of the great period in Greece and Rome with the Emperor Julian among his troops in Gaul. 4. The United States organized their troops sent to Europe in the Great War by tests of mother wit. Intelligence Tests, and yet differ little from other democratic nations in their daily practice. And the new formed democratic parliaments of India will doubtless destroy, if they can, the caste system that has saved Indian intellect. The fascist countries know that civilization has reached a crisis and found their eloquence upon that knowledge, but from dread of attack or because they must feed their uneducatable masses, put quantity before quality. Any hale man can dig or march. They offer bounties for the 7th, 8th, or 9th baby and accelerate degeneration. In Russia, where the most intelligent families restrict their numbers as elsewhere, the stupidest man can earn a bounty by going to bed. Government there has the necessary authority, but as it thinks the social problem economic and not eugenic and ethic, what was Karl Marx but Macaulay with his heels in the air? It is the least likely to act. One nation has solved the problem in its chief city. In Stockholm, all families are small, but the greater the intelligence, the larger the family. Plato's republic, with machines instead of slaves, may dawn there, but like the other Scandinavian countries, Sweden has spent on education far more than the great nations can afford with their imperial responsibilities and ambitions. They're always increasing social services and public works. That increase, too, can be calculated mathematically. But even if all Europe becomes sufficiently educated to follow the Swedish example, can it, or can Sweden itself, escape violence? If some financial reorganization, such as Major Douglas plans, and that better organization of agriculture and industry, which many economists expect, enable everybody without effort to procure all necessities of life, and so remove the last check upon the multiplication of the uneducatable masses, it will become the duty of the educated classes to seize and control one or more of those necessities. The drilled and docile masses may submit, but a prolonged civil war seems more likely, with the victory of the skillful, riding their machines as did the feudal knights their armored horses. During the Great War, Germany had 400 submarine commanders, and 60% of the damage done was the work of 24 men. The danger is that there will be no war, that the skilled will attempt nothing, that the European civilization, like those older civilizations that saw the triumph of their gangrel stocks, will accept decay. When I was writing A Vision, I had constantly the word terror impressed upon me, and once the old Stoic prophecy of earthquake, fire, and flood at the end of an age. But this I did not take literally. It was because of that indefinable impression that I made Michael Robartes say in A Vision, "Dear predatory birds, prepare for war. Prepare your children and all that you can reach. Test art, morality, custom, thought by Thermopylae. Make rich and poor act so to one another that they can stand together there. Love war because of its horror, that belief may be changed, civilization renewed. We desire belief and lack it. Belief comes from shock and is not desired." 5. The American intelligence tests put the Irish immigrant lowest in the scale, the English, the German, and the Swede highest. Skilled men leave the industrial countries attracted by higher wages. What Irish go there are unskilled men driven by necessity. Those that succeed are the few who, as a successful Irish-American lawyer said to me, escape from toil before it has killed them. These immigrants are our unemployed and balance those that go to posts all over the British Empire as doctors, lawyers, soldiers, civil servants, or drift away drawn to the lights of London. In the opinion of most sociologists, the level of mother wit in all West European countries is still much the same. But we are threatened as they are. Already we have almost twice as many madmen as England for every 100,000. Sooner or later, we must limit the families of the unintelligent classes, and if our government cannot send them doctor and clinic, it must, till it get tired of it, send monk and confession box. We cannot go back, as some dreamers would have us, to the old way of big families everywhere, even if the intelligent classes would consent, because that old way worked through lack of science and consequent great mortality among the children of those least fitted for modern civilization. Some of the inferiority of our emigrants in the United States and in Scotland may depend upon difference of historical phase. The tests usually employed are appropriate to a civilization dominated by towns, by their objectivity and curiosity. Some of the tests are rectilinear mazes of increasing difficulty. The child marks with the pointer the way in, the way out at the other side, avoiding, if he can, turnings that lead nowhere. Probably he thinks of neighbouring streets where every turn is a right angle. An Achille child having no such image would probably fail through lack of attention. Other tests consist of fitting certain objects into pictures, but pictures are almost or wholly unknown in our remote districts. A Canadian artist told me that she once lodged with French-Canadian farmers and, noticing the thought they gave in planting a tree to the composition of the landscape, she gave the farmer's wife a picture. When she returned a year later, the farmer's wife said, "I made this apron out of that bit of canvas, but it took hours of scrubbing to get the dirt off." Then, we Irish are nearer than the English to the mythic age. Once, coming up from Cork, I got into talk with a fellow traveller and learned that he lived in County Cork, and as there was nothing noticeable about his accent, I assumed that he was a Cork man. Presently he said, "We have passed through 3 climates since we started. First our breath congealed on the glass, and then it ceased to do so, and now it congeals again." I said, "You are English?" He said, "Yes, but how did you find out?" I said, "No Irishman would have made that observation." I forget what more I said, but it may have been that we are not disinterested observers, being much taken up with our own thoughts and emotions. The English are an objective people. They have no longer a sense of tragedy in their threats. Pity, which is fed by observation instead of experience, has taken its place. Their poets are psychological, looking at their own minds from without. Ninette de Valois, herself a Dublin woman, protested the other day because somebody had called the theatre the province of the Jews and the Irish. "The Irish," she said, "are adaptable immigrants. The bigger and emptier a country, the better it pleases them. When England fills up, they will disappear. They will lunch in bed instead of merely breakfasting there. They will be scared off by the matriculation papers."